Okay guys, so before we get into data and object-oriented programming, we first need to learn how to exchange data in JavaScript. So let's learn about JSON. When exchanging data between browsers and a server, the data can be only text. JSON is actually text, and we can convert any JavaScript object into JSON and send JSON to the server. We can also convert any JSON received from the server into JavaScript objects. I will show you we have exactly two important methods in JSON that we will use, and that's basically it. That is what JSON is. This way we can work with the data as JavaScript objects with no complicated parsing and translation. So what is JSON? Well, JSON is short for JavaScript Object Notation. And JSON is a lightweight data interchange format. It is self-described and easy to understand. JSON is language independent. So what that actually means is that JSON uses JavaScript syntax, but the JSON format is text only. And text can be read and used as data format by any programming language. So by definition, the JSON object contains method for parsing JavaScript objects, notations, and converting values to JSON. Now, what kind of data types can we use in JSON? Well, exactly as in JavaScript, we can use numbers, no difference between integers and floats. We can use strings of Unicode characters. You can also use, and we use double quotes when you use strings. We can use booleans like true or false, arrays, ordered list of 0 or more values, objects on ordered collections of key value pairs, and null, which are empty values. So a JSON syntax looks like this. It's a key value pair which has double quotes around the key and the value, and it is within curly braces, and it must use the specific data type. A JSON file is always a .json. Okay, now let's create a folder. Let's call this JSON and open it with our Visual Studio Code. Let's just drag and drop it here. Now let's create our file. Let's call this, actually let me create an index.html, and as always, please download the file that I provided for you in the download section of the course. Okay, so I'm just going to copy in, first of all, my HTML. As I said, you can download this. So let's create a boilerplate, and within the body tag, I'm just going to copy in the text. So this is actually just this text right here. Now, let me also create a JavaScript file. Let's call this app.js. And now let's start creating a object. Let's say let user. I'm going to create here object of name Norbert. What the hell did I type there? Name Norbert. Let's also give it the age of 33. So we're going to use a number. Then we're going to create another object, address. And let's say within this, we're going to have a street, which will have a string of main street. And please note that my single quotes always convert into double quotes. This is just a setting for me, but always use double quotes. Okay? So now city. And we call this the city. Okay, let's close this up, and also let me create here an array of family. Okay, and we're gonna type in here Laura and Arabella. Okay, so we have our object user. Now let's first of all open up this with live server. So this isn't very pretty, but I actually don't need this. I don't need this at all. You just need it. But I do need this down here. It's app.js. Okay, so let's inspect it, open up the console, and let me increase this so we can all see it. Okay, so let's go back in here and let's console log now our user. Okay, so we know we will get a object. Woo, this just disappears. I have my app. I didn't link up JavaScript. So script and app.js. Okay, there's our user object. We can see we have our user here, name, age, address, another object within it, and our array. And we know that we can also select something specific, for example, the address from our object, and we only get the city and the street. And we can be even more specific, dot city from the address, and we get our city. And if I would check now the type of, so type of, it will be a string. Okay. Now I can also get from the user family, just a bit of recap. So let's get from the array of family the first name, also a string. Let me get out the type of, which is Laura. Okay, so these both are strings. If I would now get user age, we get a number. Let's check the type of. I'm just going to copy this, and it's a number. If I would also get the user dot name, and we need here comma, then we have a string and another type of string and number. Okay. Now, if we want to get a string out of this entire object, then we will need to use the JSON dot stringify method. So you see, we have exactly these two methods, the parse and the stringify. And at the stringify method, you can see it converts a JavaScript value to a JavaScript object notation JSON string. Okay, so if I would type in now JSON.stringify, and within here, then the user, this will convert our user object into a string. So the stringify method converts a JavaScript object or value to a JSON string, optionally replacing values if replacing functions is specified, or optionally including only the specified property if a replacer array is specified. Okay, so let me take our user and now assign it to JSON.stringify. I'm going to stringify the object of user. Now if I would console log the user again, let's see what we get. We'll get a string. Actually, this is a JSON format of our user object. Now, from this point on, if I, let's say I would reassign the user to let family is equal to user, and I would now console log our family. You can see I would get again the string of the JSON of the user. So this will stay this way from this point on. In order to convert it back to an object, we will need to use, so let me comment this out. I could leave it as it is. We will need to use the JSON.parse method, which will convert the JavaScript object notation of JSON into a string, into a object again. So if I will use parse dot in parentheses user, and now let's console log the user again, we'll get our object back. Okay, so even if I reassign this no need to let anymore. Family and console log family again. We'll get our object again. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this video. See you in the next one. Bye bye.